Ready? Play.
Welcome back to another episode of Painting Lines. This is a special one today because it'll be our 100th episode. So, a big thanks to all of our listeners who tune in each week. And this week, we will be talking Miami Open and breaking down the second half of the tournament.
Yeah, but before we jump in, let's do a bit of reminiscing on these 100 episodes, Eric. So I just wanted to ask you, what has been your favorite episode we've done so far, and maybe one that you'd like recommend that people go check out after this one?
Ooh, that's a good one. Ah, I gotta say the Sam Querrey interview. I don't
Yeah,
have the episode number off the top of my head, but you can easily find that. That was one of my favorites.
yeah, that was definitely cool because he's such a high level player, and he's played against so many greats and been in these big moments that uh, we got to hear about.
Yeah. How about you? What was yours?
I think I'll say when we drafted the best seasons ever, just because I felt like it was really fun. I felt like it was cool having Quinn and Parth on again, and it was just, I think, very fun for us to do, and hopefully that came through in the episode.
Yeah, it was in person too, which is nice. Like we're all there together and it's not over Zoom, but
Yeah, it definitely was a fun one. But anyway, you want to jump into the Miami Open now?
yeah, let's do it. I'm pretty juiced up because I just watched that 17-minute 2005 Federer Miami run that Tennis TV posted on YouTube. So let's just rock and roll here. Aiden, what were your overall thoughts of the tournament?
I mean, I think since we're talking full tournament here and not just the second half, it just felt like a statement this tournament about where we are in tennis, which is essentially that nobody's safe. Every tournament, any player has a chance to win, and any player has a chance to be eliminated early. I mean, we saw a glimpse of it last year where Poprin made that crazy win at the Canada Masters, but now that it's happened a second time, it doesn't really feel like it's just chance because that time it did feel very much like, oh, yeah, this can happen, but it's not going to happen very often. Now we've seen Draper win a title we didn't expect. Now we've seen Mensik win a title we didn't expect. And in a way, that final seemed kind of symbolic with Djokovic being there and losing to a really young guy here, where it just seemed as though that's the symbolic end of Djokovic kind of dominating, especially in that brief period where Nadal and Federer kind of weren't there anymore. And it just showed us where we're at really now.
Yeah, that's a good take. I feel like you can also find symbolism in like that next gen where Medvedev's out of the top 10 after this week, and you kind of see a new player, a 19-year-old Mensik, win this title. And it's not against any of the next gen guys, it's against Djokovic, who is from the big three era, like basically skipping over a whole generation. So I feel like I don't know if there's a complete changing of the guard quite yet, but it just seems like the floodgates have busted open. Like you said, it is anyone's tournament any given day.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, so who do you think had a more impressive run to the finals? Do you think Djokovic or Mensik?
I think in different ways, both of the runs were impressive because Djokovic, honestly, I feel like I didn't have super high expectations for him. Obviously, he's a threat in the tournament. I didn't expect him to make the final, though, going into it, to be honest. And he played solid opposition and he didn't even drop a set until that final. So that's a really impressive run there. On the other hand, Mensik had big wins in terms of the expectations for him to lose were massive, and he didn't play nobodies in this tournament. He played solid opponents. I mean, he when he beat Draper, we were kind of like, oh my God, Draper. I know it's Mensik, who is a next gen guy that was in the next gen finals last year and has had some big results, but we were kind of a little bit down, I feel like, on Draper. And then you see how Mensik ended up doing in that tournament. And it's another situation where, in retrospect, that Draper loss doesn't look as bad because of the level Mensik was playing at. But he then went on to beat a couple other good guys, and it really showed that he has that high level. So I think Mensik, it was impressive because he just came out of nowhere, and Djokovic, it was impressive because he was able to perform at a level we were not necessarily expecting, but we were hoping for.
Right. Yeah, and I feel like my first reaction to this was kind of each guy didn't have like an amazing run. It wasn't like a Runa, what was it, Monte Carlo run where he just like took
Oh, the
out
Paris Masters, I think,
Paris
in
Masters. Yeah.
2022.
Yeah, it wasn't one of those. Like Mensik even had a walkover against
Right.
Mahach, so I was kind of thinking like, all right, but it's not quite asterisk because he still had some big wins. Like the Fritz win definitely made up for that. That gave him a lot of
100%. He beat
respect.
Feast. He
Hmm.
beat Draper, like I said. So yeah, wasn't playing. He didn't get like that FAA Madrid
Yeah.
run where he just jumped over a bunch of guys.
Yeah, exactly. And then Djokovic, you just kind of even right now, I was expecting him to just go out and do his thing. So it wasn't like he really impressed me with his run either.
Yeah, I can understand. I can understand how his run wasn't as impressive, but it depends what you're judging him against to an extent,
Mhm.
right? If you're judging him against Djokovic of 2023, it's like, yeah, you expect him to be in the final given who he played. But if you judge him against the Djokovic that lost like three first rounds in a row, little bit different.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I feel like it was only a matter of time until he bounced back.
Yeah, I mean, we can hope he'll keep bouncing back,
Yeah,
but at a certain
right.
point, right? It's like the elasticity, I guess, at the old age. It's like you don't bounce back the same amount.
I know. And he was hitting the deck a lot in that finals too. I think I saw at least like 3 or 4 times,
I
at
mean,
least in the highlights.
he looked really gassed for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, speaking of Djokovic, I feel like you'll get a kick out of this. Did you see Murray hitting with Djokovic before the final? Because I'm pretty sure when this coaching partnership was first announced, you made that joke where Murray would be playing practice sets against Djokovic.
Yeah, no, I mean, I didn't actually see it, but yeah, like I said then, not many coaches can do that, and Murray still has the stroke to play. Honestly, I feel as though if Murray had continued through this year, he'd still be able to play at a top 100, maybe top 150 level as a player. It's just that it would be so painful for him to still be out there because that movement aspect. So he still has the stroke. He can hit with Djokovic, just doesn't necessarily have that movement, I feel like.
Yeah, definitely. So before we jump into the tournament, I just want to cover a couple headlines here. So did you see the Djokovic quarter match that was postponed to the next day? And I feel like that deserves some attention because this is a fairly new rule where they won't start matches after 11 p.m. And a lot of people were chiming in and saying that this rule should be subjective, that if players are fine with starting it, then they should play it. And I just wanted to hear your thoughts. Like, I feel like it's unfair to a player to wait around all day, wait a few hours, and then 11 o'clock, if you're still down to play, they say nope, got to play the next day. So that got moved to 4:30 the following day.
Yeah, I
I
think it's
mean,
a weird situation because of the fans.
mhm.
There's a lot of people that probably won't stay that late, and they did pay to see certain players play, right?
Yeah,
So yes, that is kind of just a situation where in tennis sometimes matches go long, sometimes they get delayed, but it's also you can't really expect people to stick around to watch a match that starts at 11 p.m. So I think that's the weird thing. I think moving it to the next day kind of has to be done, and maybe you refund those fans that or refund part of their ticket. I don't
hmm,
know. I just think the fans aspect is probably why that uh, exists because they're going to get empty seats for a Djokovic match when and they're like we could fill all of these seats by just playing it the next day.
yeah, true, true. And since they did have off the next day anyway, like I feel like it worked out a little better. Like if you were early on in the tournament and this was happening, I don't know how much you can move around the schedule because it was a little later on. I think there's more flexibility. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think a positive for the players too, because I've heard numerous times when a match gets started around 11, let's say it goes 2.5 hours and then you have to stretch, see the physio, get treatment, like eat, get back to your hotel, and you're going to bed at like 5, 6 a.m., which is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, didn't we see
Like,
that with Sinner at a big tournament last year where he had to pull out because he had like a match that started super late and then he played the next day?
yeah, it's so I could see why, like, it definitely benefits the players too here. So, good call, I guess, by the ATP or whoever made this new rule.
Yeah, seems to be. I definitely agree though. It can get pretty tricky, I'm sure,
Hmm.
scheduling wise.
Yep, yep. And then we got Adam Walton, his lucky loser run. I wanted to mention this because I thought this was pretty fantastic. So He was fourth on the lucky loser list behind Ugo, Diallo, and Gaston. And this guy had his car packed up, ready to go. He was about to buy a ticket to Mexico City to play in the Challenger there. And then last minute, Hurkacz pulls out, and he got notified that he would be replacing him. And not only did he replace Hurkacz, but Hurkacz was seeded, so he got a first round bye into the second round, and then he got a win against Arderi, which got him into the round of 16 when he eventually lost to Fritz. But still, this is only his fifth tour level win.
Yeah, that's nuts. I mean, it's just so sick for a guy that is a lucky loser and played in the qualifiers to actually get into the second round. And then only with one win, now he's in the round of 16, and just such a massive benefit there.
Oh, I know. Tell me about it. Like lucky loser. How that the name just doesn't really do it justice.
Exactly. 100%. 100%.
All right, so let's get in here. Let's start with the round of 16. I thought there were a good amount of heavyweight matches. Kind of when I say heavyweight, I mean like highly anticipated with some big names in there. And first on the list, Deminar Berrettini. This was one that we talked about where we both agreed, through text that either Deminar would out rally, out defend Berrettini, or his defensive counterpunch play style would backfire and Berrettini would pounce all over him. But nonetheless, it was a good match. Super thrilling of a second set when
Yeah.
Berrettini went on to win.
100%. I mean, speaking on that, it wasn't my match of the week, and I don't think it was yours either. But I
Mm-mm.
do want to kind of break down that second set ending because it was really unbelievable. Starting it off, kind of contributing to why it wasn't my match of the week. Deminar kind of choked, to be honest. He led love 40 at when Berrettini was serving at 4-5, couldn't get that break to force it to a third set. Then he immediately gets broken, and Berrettini serves for the match. Then there's this game with, I don't know, like 10 deuces. I'm exaggerating, but super tight game, a bunch of deuces. And Deminar eventually manages to survive, force it to a breaker. And then he goes up again in the breaker and has set points, but can't close it out. And Berrettini ends up taking it in that breaker. So just crazy swings of momentum here. And unfortunately, Deminar ended up on the losing side here, but it was definitely tense to watch.
Yeah, and I feel like 8 out of 10 times Deminar wins against Berrettini.
You'd like to think that, but I
I
guess
would like, yeah, I know.
Berrettini's on the resurgence, I guess here. So
I guess so. But yeah, next heavyweight match was Zverev Feast, which I think is turning into a pretty good rivalry because their head to head is now 3-2. And there's that beef with Zverev's ahead in the head to head, but there's that beef that happened in Hamburg where Feast beat him in the Hamburg final in front of his home crowd, hit an underarm serve in there too. They were like jarring at each other. But I thought it was great because there was even a spicy moment in this match too when off on the changeover after the second set, Zverev completely stared down Feast. Like Feast didn't really acknowledge it, but Zverev fucking mean mugged him, and he ended up losing the match. Feast won in three sets.
yeah, I mean, this is just a situation. I feel like we have to talk about what's going on with Zverev right now because since the Australian Open, while he's essentially been like the artificial world number one with center out, like he is hypothetically ranked as the best player playing right now.
Hmm.
And yet he's 6-5, like I said. So what's going on with him? Did he lose all of his mental strength after that Australian Open loss? Because that's just not the level of performance you expect from a guy that is the best player in the world.
I feel like that's not a bad take because we heard him basically count himself out, just kind of shit on his game, say, I'm not as good. These guys are just way better. I feel like you can't play good tennis when you don't have faith in yourself here. And honestly, I thought, okay, maybe we'll give him a chance going into the clay season because he tends to play better on clay. But he also didn't really do that well in the South American swing, which happened to be on clay. So I don't really know what we can expect. Like, I'm not really very optimistic on him for the rest of the season.
Yeah. I mean, I like you said, we'll maybe give him a chance in the European clays. Maybe that'll work out different for him. But yeah, so far it's been pretty underwhelming since that Australian Open.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I think you're right. I think it is mental. So maybe it's bringing on someone, either a sports psychologist or someone new to the coaching staff, something to kind of get his swagger back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the next match we got Cerundolo Rude. I feel like this was considered kind of heavyweight because of both guys being, ranked. And on the other hand, though, just two clay guys, two clay rats battling it out on a hard court. And I saw a really funny tweet that had a picture of Rude after his loss this week against Cerundolo, and then his loss last year at the Miami Open as well. And he was smiling ear to ear in both pictures, like right after the loss. And it's just funny. Someone was like, he's just ready to get on with this hard court swing, be done, and then get ready for clay season.
Yeah. I feel like that's pretty accurate because I was looking at the rankings by surface, and according to the points, he's only the 23rd ranked player in the world on hard court. But if you go to clay, he has the second most points. He's the number 2 ranked guy on clay. So 100% understandable that he wants to get onto the surface where he actually is a more dominant force.
Yeah, and he already hates Miami as it is too, so I'm sure he's just ready to get on that plane, get out of there.
Yeah, exactly. But on the other hand, I think Sarandolo is kind of been performing pretty well on hard courts. I mean, I think he did well last week. He did well this week. So I want to give him a little bit more of a benefit of the doubt in terms of not just calling him a clay route, to be honest.
That's true. Yeah, big win against Tommy Paul last week as well. And then next up, Djokovic Musetti. I don't really have much to say here. Djokovic won 2-2. It's
Yeah.
kind of a beatdown.
A matchup where you're like, okay, these are two big names, and then it just goes very one sided.
Yeah, and then I want to mention Dimitrov and Nakashima. I feel like this is kind of one. Dimitrov's a big name. Nakashima not quite yet, but he's still seated here. So I figured I'd give the mention. But Dimitrov took care of business. It was something that you kind of you kind of saw the veteran say not so fast to the new guy, the new up and coming star. Which, even though Nakashima's an American, I kind of was rooting for Dimitrov here.
Yeah, I think Dimitrov gets that fan favorite vote.
He does, man. Plus, they did a lot of PR with him around the Miami Open. Like, I feel like I saw a lot of, tennis TV clips of him just doing funny interviews and stuff.
100%. Yeah, they like getting the Dimitrov personality out there.
Yeah, yeah, they do. And then later on in the round, Mensik, he got a walkover against Mahach, like I mentioned before.
Yeah. He's taking notes from his countryman Lehechka on how to get those walkovers. But honestly, speaking of those three guys, Mensik, Lehechka, Mahach, honestly, pretty impressive for Czech tennis. Like Czech
hmm
tennis on the rise.
Yeah, for a small country, man, it is definitely producing some guys here. And then finishing off the round of 16, Korda continues his run, beats Monfils. I was kind of surprised to see this happen.
It was definitely a weird match with that rain delay, and then they restarted the next day, I think in the middle of the third set. So you get those odd situations where does it benefit Monfils because he's a little older? Maybe, but I think it kind of just throws off everyone's rhythm in the match.
Yeah, so it looks like Korda had a couple instances where his scheduling just kind of got all messed up, like with the late start against Djokovic and then the rain delay.
100%. 100%.
All right, on to the quarters. Let's start with Dimitrov. He absolutely grinded out a three-setter against Cerundolo. This ended in a third set tiebreak, which is always exciting. And Dimitrov just looked so fatigued after the match. You kind of figured that that would be the end of his run. Like you even texted me, right? You're like, "Hey, I don't know if it looks too good for him."
Yeah, I mean, I saw a video of him like getting helped off the court after that match. So didn't have a lot of confidence really going into that next match. But this was my match of the week, so I'll talk about it a little bit more later on.
Yeah, he left it all out on the court.
Exactly, exactly.
All right, next up, we got Fritz beating Berrettini after missing 6 match points. This was pretty crazy. Fritz was serving at 6-5 in the breaker, and Berrettini just absolutely cleaned a return. And Fritz's coach, like during the match, said that he missed his spot. And Fritz was like, no, 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 I nailed it 2 inches from the line. Go pull it up. And this is all happening on the court. And then after the match, they looked it up, and Fritz was right. Like he nailed a solid spot on the serve, but Berrettini just got a hold of that return.
Just took a
So
risk, I guess.
yeah, he did. He did. And then next we got the next gen finals rematch. Mensik got his revenge against Feast. That brought the head-to-head record to 1-1. And it was an interesting match. It was a tight first set. It went to a breaker, but then after that, Mensik ran away with the second and won 6-1.
Yeah. Mensik, another breaker here.
Dude, right? Yeah. And then next up, Djokovic just being Djokovic. He ended up in the semis with a win against Korda. And I say he ended up in the semis because I feel like he just kind of flew under the radar here, just doing doing what he does. And it's unfortunate because this is one where you kind of think like, okay, a declining Djokovic playing against a somewhat surging or like yet to break out Korda. But then reality sets in and you just can't rule out Djokovic. And funny moment of this match was he brought out the ice gloves. Do you see those?
No, I didn't see those.
Oh yeah, so Djokovic wore these. They looked like oven mitts, but they were ice gloves that I guess um like
Yeah, I sometimes
help
don't. I
your
don't pay
drop your
attention
body
during the.
temperature.
I don't pay attention during the changeover some of the time.
Yeah, yeah, it was funny, but he's once again starting some kind of trend. I bet we'll start seeing ice gloves out on the court,
Yeah,
especially in
something to
hot, humid Miami.
exactly something to cool them down, right?
Hmm. On to the semis now. Djokovic took down Dimitrov 2-3. Like I said, this match seemed like it was over before it even started due to Dimitrov's fitness. Two fans got kicked out in this match. So what happened was apparently they were heckling Dimitrov, and Dimitrov started walking over. He goes, "You have a problem? You have a problem?" And Dimitrov kind of got into it with them, which he never does. He's mostly known for being like the classy player, doesn't really give in to that. And the ref ejected the fans. He stopped the match. He ran over. He got security on the phone, got him out of there. And so I just want to give my take on this. I personally think that bigger names get much better treatment from the ref, especially in this case, because same exact thing happened to Mutet last week, and he ended up getting penalized for reacting. Whereas when Dimitrov reacted, the fan got kicked out.
Yeah, I think that part of it comes down to the chair umpire, who they are, uh, and I also think it's more about the fact that Mutet was kind of antagonizing the fans a little bit before that happened,
Hmm.
whereas Dimitrov just kind of went over, talked to them immediately, and so there was an immediate confrontation. He hadn't really done anything before that, and so the umpire comes over immediately. Mutek kind of walked over to the umpire and was like, "I'm just going to sit down until you throw that guy out."
Yeah.
Like he was making demands from the umpire more. But
Yeah.
I do agree that's just how it is, where sometimes guys get better treatment because they're a higher ranked player. I mean, how many times did Kyrgios say that about Sinner before he got banned, right? Like
Yeah.
you're only not banning him immediately because he's the number one guy in the world.
Yeah, no, that's just how it is. I agree. And I think what's funny is I don't know, so two people got kicked out, but I think it was one person heckling, and I think the other guy just happened to be like his friend or his son or something, which you just kind of you saw one guy, they were like pointing to him like get him out, get him out. So they got the guy and then someone like was like, God damn it, like I gotta leave now too.
Yeah,
And
the
they
other guy's
had
like,
front row VIP tickets too.
the other guy's like, my friend.
Yeah, it's like, dude, just you had to screw this up. I couldn't just sit
Exactly.
here and watch Djokovic play Dimitrov front
Exactly.
row. Anyway, next up on the docket, Mensik beats Fritz in a three-set thriller, 7-6, 4-6, 7-6. This was great because Mensik didn't break Fritz's serve once. He just clutched up in both tiebreaks, 7-4 in both tiebreaks too. So the match really only came down to a few key points. That's why I think this is insane.
100%. Definitely insanely close match. Anytime someone talks about winning a match without getting a break on serve, though, I immediately think of that Federer versus Djokovic Wimbledon final, where Djokovic didn't break Federer until the one game when it mattered.
Oh, I
But
know.
yeah, I think it just kind of proves that, yeah, you don't necessarily have to be able to get the break to be able to win the match.
Yeah, something I noticed too, this is a little off topic, but just about Fritz when he plays, I feel like it's almost equivalent to a like a cowboy duel. Like the way Fritz hits, it's like he's bringing so much power from his waist. His rack is just like boom, boom, boom. It's so funny. I just like I want to see an edit of him like pulling out a pistol because he would be fast as hell.
Exactly. And spinning it like they do with the racket.
Yeah, 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 yeah. All right, now on to the finals. Unseeded Mensik wins his first Masters 1000 final. He was the lowest ranked men's finalist in Miami Open history. And I feel like you don't normally get dark horses in the Sunshine Double, but this year I felt like it was back to back with Draper and Mensik. What are your thoughts? Like, I don't want to say they're complete dark horses, but they're definitely, I feel like you get more solid guys winning these tournaments because they're so big.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're the first two big ones of the year, right? The first two Masters 1000 events. You look at who won it last year, Sinner and Alcaraz. It's like, yeah, kind of who you expected. And I do think, like you said, because there's so much anticipation, it's really the first return to peak level tennis. Every single major guy is there after the Australian Open. And so, yeah, you get guys playing at a very high level. And I think that's why you don't normally see necessarily these under unexpected guys, rather,
Mhm.
actually performing super well in this tournament. But different this year, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you mentioned this, I think, last week, but Alcaraz comes up empty, Sunshine Double. Pretty disappointing with Sinner out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we with Sinner out, I think I said this last week, but I expected him to at least play in a final,
Hmm.
which is high expectations. But when you're someone like Alcaraz, you have high expectations put upon you, and he just under delivered this year.
Yeah, pressure is a privilege, right?
100%. Billie Jean
Yeah.
King.
Yes, sir. Highlight of this run by Mensik was the fact that he was about to pull out. Like I'm sure you've heard this story, but he went to go to the ref to pull out of his match about an hour before, and it just so happened that the ref was like out to lunch or eating lunch, so he didn't see him. So he goes, "All right, let me go to the physio one more time, get some treatment." Somehow got better enough to play, and then all of a sudden wins a Masters 1000 title. Pretty
Pretty
insane.
insane. Yeah.
And
That's
the
a
fact
wild run.
is a wild run, and he does it against his idol, like his absolute tennis idol. He said in the speech that he's the reason that he is playing tennis right now. And I'm pretty sure Djokovic, took attention to Mensik, when he was 15, 16 and mentored him and like actually practiced with him. And I bet Djokovic never thought that in 5 years this guy would be beating him in a Masters 1000 final. It's just kind of crazy what the way the world works.
Yeah, I mean, you see all those photos all the time where it's that top level player and they have someone take a photo with them and then yeah, 5 years later they're on the same court or they're on the same field or whatever it is. It's always insane to see those.
Yeah, I mean, you see it in sports like tennis and like basketball, maybe baseball,
Soccer.
not so much soccer. Yeah, like sports where you can have a pretty long career. Where, yeah, I feel like Messi is a great example. Like I'm sure guys in the league right now or guys that play against Messi grew up as children watching him, just being like, I want to be like him when I'm older. And now you're playing against him on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a famous photo of like Jason Tatum playing like taking a photo with LeBron James
Wow.
and
Oh,
then later on they're playing against each other and they're two of the best in the league.
yeah, yeah. Another interesting aspect of this final was Djokovic had a swollen eye coming in, and everyone was questioning what it was. Apparently, it was a sty, but classy move by Djokovic was after the match. He kept getting asked about it, asked whether it inhibited his vision or his play, and he flat out declined to answer. He was basically like, I'm not here to talk about my eye. Let's talk about how well Mensik performed. Like, I'm not going to make any excuses. I don't want to answer the question. And then someone else asked him another question about his eye. A couple minutes later, he goes, like I said before, I'm not here to answer questions about my eye. It didn't
As per my
affect me. Let's
last
move
email.
on. Yeah. Yeah, right. Just so classy of him. I feel like this is Djokovic, the one the people like. Like he's been a villain before, but he's also been a very well liked guy. And I feel like since he's at the end of his career, he wants kind of the recency bias to take place where people are going to remember him as just a great dude.
100%. Yeah. But anyway, last couple of comments about this tournament. I do want to say, I know I mentioned this earlier, but Mensik really was the tiebreak master here. He had 7 tie breaks in this tournament, including obviously 2 in the semis and 2 in the final, and was 7-0 in them. So, like I said before, sometimes you don't have to be able to break serve. You just have to be able to win those key points and get the mini breaks and the tiebreakers.
Yeah, so let me ask you this then. Because he was so on with his serve, like, do you think that he'll need to focus on his, I guess, return game, or should he just hone in on what he's good at and double down on the service games? Like, what do you do when you're that good? Do you practice breaking people, or do you just stick with what you're good at?
It's the Isner argument, right? I
I
mean,
don't know.
Isner
Familiarize me
Isner
with
was a
that.
top 10 guy in the world with really a very one-dimensional game. Not that he wasn't great at the other things, but the
Hmm.
reason he was able to play at the level he did was because he had just a massive serve. Now, when you get to that level, maybe it stops working to an extent, but you're already a top 10 player in the world.
Hmm.
Would you rather do that or take a risk where maybe other guys catch up on to your serve and you've been focusing on your return game? It's tough to say. It's tough
Yeah.
to balance that sort of situation, but I think nobody has the right answer there.
Yeah, and I do think that Mensik is hungry. Like you said, Isner was a top 10 guy. Isner wasn't, winning slams. I could see Mensik as a guy who is winning, who's potentially going to win a slam. So he might even need to I guess work on other parts of his game instead of just perfecting one because he's 6'4" and he can move very well too. So he's going
100%.
to be dangerous out there.
Yeah. And then the last thing I wanted to mention here was this statistic I saw kind of about Djokovic and whether this is his last chance to win a title. Because obviously there's 2 other guys that have triple digit titles, Jimmy Connors and Roger Federer. And the stat that I saw and that kind of stood out was remarking on the time it took for them to get from 99 to 100. For Connors, it was like 2.5 months. So it was like he won the 99th, a little later, he won the 100th. Federer was a little over 4. So there was a little bit of a gap there. He won the title. He had a little bit of a span and then won the last or won the 100th. But you look at Djokovic, his last title was the Olympics, which is already 9 months ago. Before that, it was the ATP Finals, which was 15 months ago. And to me, just the longer this gap stretches, the more it seems like time is finally caught up with him, and he's not ever going to get that 100th title. So, just kind of a question to be posed: like, is he done? Is he ever going to be able to seize that opportunity again?
I think he's going to get his 100th title later this year in his home tournament, Belgrade. I think it's a 250. I don't think there's going to be that much competition there, and I think he's going to wrap up his career there and get the 100th. That's
I
a
think
hot
that's
take, but
I can understand it, to be honest. I think it's
I don't think it'll come in the form of a 1,000 or a Grand Slam, but I think he gets one more title.
it's a solid take.
Even though my take, I think, for the last couple months was that I don't think Djokovic will get a title, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Changes.
But anyway, you ready to hop into segments here?
Yeah, let's do it. Hey guys, before we jump in, we have some exciting news. We recently partnered with TruePro. They're a great place to buy strings, grips, and tennis apparel. Use discount code Painting Lines, that's one word, for 20% off store wide. You can find the link in our bio.
Sounds good. What's new in tennis? What'd you see this week?
So I want to follow up on the Mutet news from last week. He tweeted out that he decided to withdraw from Bucharest because he doesn't feel mentally ready after the Miami incident. I think this is I guess it took a bigger toll on him than what we all thought.
I think it's just for frustration. I mean,
Hmm.
especially after what you said with Dimitrov, he's seeing other people get put in the same situation and not necessarily get penalized the same way he did.
Yeah, and then I have another thing also that I wanted to mention too. This is big news. Marat Safin joins Rublev's team for the clay season. I feel like this is amazing for Rublev. Like he needed that. But Fernando Vicenti will remain the main coach. So he's just added on to the team. And I don't think he's even like going to be at every single clay tournament, but he's at least for partially, which I
Yeah.
think is great. We've been talking about Rublev needing to make a change, and he did.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just adding sort of experience, a guy that's won Grand Slams. Always good to have that sort of thought process in your team brainstorm, I guess.
Yeah, and you can say that Safin's, um, I guess, mental volatility is pretty similar to Rublev. So I feel like he's the perfect guy to kind of have that insight into Rublev's brain as to what's going on because Safin was a menace out there. He was known for losing his temper and just being like uncontrollable. So I assume he's pretty tame now as he aged. So I think this is perfect for Rublev.
Yeah, give him some perspective.
Give him some perspective. Exactly. So what did you see this week?
I saw that Marin Cilic won a challenger in Girona. And what's interesting about this was that he breaks the record for the longest gap between challenger titles at 17 years and 10 months, which is
Whoa.
pretty wild because that means he was professional over 18 years ago at least. So pretty insane to see that. But also wanted to comment because who do you think he took the record from, Eric?
Oh, geez. Andy Murray.
100%, 100%. Andy Murray. Murray won a challenger title, I want to say in 2024, 2023,
Yeah.
but it was 17 years and 8 months for that gap.
Wow.
So
It was close.
yeah, pretty wild there. But yeah, cool to see Chilich still getting it done, even if it's not at the highest level right now.
Yeah, totally. Good to see him out there. Because he's another guy who's just part of that old generation, that big three era, who's hanging on by
Exactly.
a thread.
100%. You see Nishikori in these tournaments, you're like, I
Yeah.
want to root for him. How about a bet of the week?
Bet of the week. This one was pretty interesting. I'm taking Dusan Lajovic over Christopher O'Connell at minus 150. I don't have much to say here. I just think that Australians on clay are no bueno, and Lajovic is, I think he's pretty good on clay. So
Yeah.
I'm going with this one, and I feel pretty confident too. It's
Yeah,
also
but
in Romania, which is fairly close to Serbia. Like they border each other, so I feel like he could have somewhat of a home-ish court advantage.
yeah,
Romania is pretty
closer
far
than
from
Australia.
Australia. Yeah, great. How about you?
I'm going with Diallo plus 125 for Tseng. In this match, I mean, definitely could go either way. I just feel like Diallo has played very solidly so far this year. Tseng does have a bit of an advantage, I think, on clay, but with how Diallo's kind of been moving, I feel like he's had a positive trajectory. I think he's going to continue to improve. I think it's going to be beneficial for him to maybe have a bigger game on clay. We've seen some success from guys with big games and bigger serves on clay in the past. I know it's not necessarily the template you think of, but we've seen Berrettini do well. We've seen Struff do
Mhm.
well with a big sort of frame. So hoping Diallo can follow in those guys' footsteps.
Yeah, that'll be a good one. I might tag along with you on that too.
Sounds good. But how about to wrap it up, match of the week?
Match of the week. So I am taking the Mensik Fritz semifinal, and since I already touched on it, I'm kind of just gonna get into some stats because I thought they were interesting. Mensik dropped 25 aces this match. I know, crazy. Fritz had more winners from the baseline. It was 25 to 15, but he also had 20 unforced errors. You could say this match was a serve fest because Mensik was 82% on first serve and Fritz was 80%. But despite the serve fest, there was a tense 27 shot rally that Mensik won to set up two match points in the tiebreak. And then before that, there were two 25 shot rallies earlier in the set that Fritz had won. So, we still see these guys hitting from the baseline and doing pretty well at it too. For me, this was a match where I was rooting for Fritz to win, but I also didn't mind if Mensik won because I think it's cool that he makes his first Masters 1000 final. Like there's a story behind it. And Aiden, before you say that I thought you didn't like underdogs winning, I do in this case because I think Mensik is going to be a top 10 guy for, you know, I would say in the next year or two. And I don't like when random one-offs win, like one-off underdogs win. Like this is, I think, part of the ascent. I don't like when
So like for someone like Fonseca, you might be rooting for.
definitely 100%, but someone like Morojan beating Fritz to make a final, like no, I'm
Well,
not
you
there
know
for it.
Morojan's gonna do it at some
Yeah, all
point.
right. Someone like Darderi, like someone completely random who doesn't have that like
Like
momentum.
when Djokovic lost to who was it, Nardi at
Yeah,
Indian Wells last year, where you're kind of like, okay, this
yeah, it just
guy's not a
fucks the
bad player,
bracket.
but you're just
Uh-huh.
kind of confused how he was able to get it done there.
Yeah, yeah. So I just threw a lot at you there. How about your match of the week?
My match of the week, like I mentioned earlier, was Dimitrov just barely surviving to get that win against Cerundolo. He was actually broken in the first game of the match, and it was the first time he'd been broken all tournament. So that kind of set up how that match was going to go. It wasn't going to be easy for him. He got the break back and then actually had a chance to break for the set at 4-5, was up 15-40, but couldn't convert it. And then he had another set point in the breaker and dumped like an easy backhand volley into the net. Just really disappointing, honestly. Should have been a put away, should have been the end of the set, but couldn't convert it. And then ended up losing that first set. In the second set, he kind of set the tone early, immediately broke, went on to take the set. But then in the final set, he went down 0-3, was looking terrible physically, was down 15-30. And then he just hit this nice, like kind of moving into the court, cross court forehand winner. And immediately after, he kind of just took a deep breath and was like, okay, it's not over. And then he managed to break back and survived to a tiebreak. Actually, after facing match points at, I think, 6-5. But despite these physical struggles he was clearly dealing with, managed to survive and get it done in the end. But honestly, from both guys, just a super impressive, gritty performance in a physical battle.
Yeah, not only was I guess he facing his own physical. Oh fuck! I don't like how I'm saying that. Sorry, I'm sloppy here.
No worries.
Yeah, not only was he getting bogged down physically, but I feel like the crowd too would have been all for Cerundolo being, a pretty heavy South American city, Miami. So I feel like he was probably facing a lot of that too.
Yeah, I think he just had to kind of survive and depend on those few
Hmm.
Dimitrov fans that are out there with the
Yeah,
Romanian flag or Bulgarian flags.
Bulgarian. Yeah, yeah,
Misspoke
man.
there.
You should have seen just like the whole tournament. I feel like guys were changing 5, 6 times because their shirts were just getting swamped in sweat.
Absurd. And then, like I said earlier, I had to get helped off that court. So
Yeah, yeah.
clearly was dealing with it.
He took leave it all on the court very literal.
Exactly. Exactly. He's like, okay, I have nothing left. I need you guys to help me here.
Yeah. All right, and that's the show. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at Painting Lines Podcast. Feel free to shoot us a DM or email us any questions or thoughts at paintinglinespodcast@gmail.com.